Hello, we are at the Birken Forest Monastery in BC, Canada, and we are in the meditation sala talking to Sister Mon. Hello, Sister Mon.
Hello, Dinka.
Or Maechee Mon.
Yes.
If we were in Thailand, she would be Maechee, which is a title for 8 precept nun.
Yes.
So, Sister Mon, you've been a resident at Birken for 22 years. And you ordained also at Birken 20 years ago with Ajahn Sona as your preceptor.
Yeah.
But before you came to Birken, you were an active practitioner with the various teachers, various acclaimed teachers. So can you tell us a little bit about that time? Maybe start from your early age. How did you practice, with whom, and how did you come to decision to become a Buddhist nun, and just at Birken?
Yeah. Well, I was born in Thailand. I'm a Thai, and as most of you know, Thailand is Buddhist country. So I grew up in the Buddhist culture. My family will go to the temple, but mostly we do ceremony. We don't really do the practice meditation, And I remember when I was young, I would, if I'm at home, I would go with my sister to the temple to offer food. But it's not really that different between Thai and Westerners. When you come to the age to go to school, you attend the school and you spend most of the time with friends and studying in the class. But I think when I'm in my teenage, when you're teenage, you start to have more questions about life. You start to think more. So at that time, also, I remember when I was in high school, my mother passed away. And not long after that, only a year and a couple months, my father also passed away. He broken hearted in some way. So then, when we're young, I think everybody, we want to do something good. We want to be able to take care of ourselves, to have work. And I'm thinking about when I grow up, I will take care of my parents. But then they pass away. So then I start to, I think more. And also, fortunately, I found some books about life. So I spend time more reading. And I think that more with me for the Dhamma, for what is life, why we born, or these kind of questions. And then, of course, even that, I have to go to university. And for me, at that time, I already feel as, well, now I don't have parents, but I still have sister and brother. And they're very nice. As I said, as Buddhists, we have that nice connection. And for me, they're kind and they're nice. They don't practice. They don't know about the suttas, but they take care of me. So for me, I said, what can I do? And of course, one very big question for me is, well, my parents passed away, so I'm going to pass away too, eventually. So before I die, what can I do? So I went to university and start to do some workshop for the poor people. I will go to slum in the poor area in Bangkok and go to small towns far away in countryside. And then I see more of how people live. So then I start questioning again, I said, how that, what's going on here? The way I feel that time is, why I get all this when they also people, and they're very nice, they're very kind, but because they don't have enough opportunity. So then I become activist more. But then in the same time, I also feel as I study as a nurse. So during that time, I also have to take care of people, training in hospital. So I see that, we not, as a human being, we don't only have the body.
Yeah.
Because when I'm really with people, I like to talk to people. So I feel as a human being, we have the mind too. It's not just body. So I see like no matter how rich you are, no matter how powerful you are, but at one point when you see it, you worry, you concern your family, you worry, concern about you.
Yeah.
And that's when I start more with expose myself. But during those times, it's more with the reading. So I will read more about different teachers. And also I went to visit some monasteries later. Before I exposed more with the Buddhist, with the practice, I was more activist during university. You see. But then fortunately I met Ajahn Sulak, who is considered very knowledgeable. He is a layman, but you see in Thai we call Ajahn as a teacher. So when I met him, he knew that, I'm interested about spiritual, about training the mind. So we talked, and then he asked me to work for the foundation that he established, and it's spiritual community for lay people. Yeah. So we try to do that.
But it's a community of activists, or
well,
because he's more known as an activist than as a Buddhist, or?
Yes, but you see, we're not limited just for activists, but it's for everybody who is interested how we can be happy. A lot of people would like to be helpful and happy, but it's not easy when you're in that age, in your early 20s. You want to do something good and not just for yourself, you see. Yeah. But when you just do outside work like that and you forgot about you also important. We need to be peaceful within ourselves, to balance the work outside and the work inside.
It is so different in Thailand and in Buddhist countries than it is in the West, because we imported Buddhism, and there Buddhism is so ingrained in the culture and activism, I guess, and in everything, in every area of life. And I was thinking of you told me, or maybe you said, I think you told me that you came to Birken just at the Thanksgiving Day. Yes, which is very interesting to me, auspicious almost, because you are such a person of gratitude. You always say how grateful we should be for what we have. And I like to think of you as you came as a present to Birken.
Thank you.
And and you didn't just bring yourself as a gift or your knowledge, but you brought also the authenticity. You brought the taste of Buddhism as it is practiced in Thailand. And one thing that we are not so good at here in the West, we don't know how to be Buddhists in everyday life, how to take pleasure and enjoy just being kind, generous, compassionate, well-wishing people, which are all Buddhist values and very high values too. So I think that is something that you brought. And when you talk to people, and many people can attest to this, everybody will say that you make the teachings more real to them and more approachable.
Thank you.
Yes. So, as an activist, why did you want to engage as an activist, and how did it relate to your practice as a Buddhist? Or it came together, right?
Yeah.
It's
about
it came
life.
together.
You see, Buddhism is about life, the Dhamma, the teaching, it's the whole life. Yeah, it's not just sitting meditation, but how we live, how we feel. And of course, we could not live alone. For healthy society, we have to support each other. Imagine we born and We need doctor, nurse when we sick. We need teacher. We need farmer who plants us food. So I think that God, it seems to me that it's not really separate from life.
Yes,
Yeah.
but don't you find that here in the West, people separate it quite a bit? Like here's life and here's Buddhism.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
I heard you ask me question, what comes to my mind is, as you also said that Buddhism is still considered new here, but for me I see the good intention, aspiration. You know, like we all human beings, no matter where we born, who we are, we would like to be happy, and I believe most people, if not all, we would like to be helpful. We don't want to harm anybody, but because we don't understand that there is another way of being, you know, of living. Yeah.
Yes, and when we talk about Buddhism in everyday life, Ajahn Buddhadassa comes to mind, and you would always say, which I think he also would say, that Buddhism is not just for monastics, Buddhism is for everybody,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So when you were in Thailand, you spent some time in Ajahn Buddhadassa's monastery, and you always speak fondly about that time and Ajahn Buddhadassa. So what was it about Ajahn's way of teaching or living that resonated with you so strongly?
Well, for me, Ajahn Buddhadassa, he is a very, very good example as a disciple of the Buddha. He, first of all, of course, he also would like to be good when he is young. So he ordained as a monk and he went to study. But then he is also questioning about what is the Buddha really teach. And after, you know, and taking some time, but what very impressed me is he lived his life as an example that yes, we need to study to have some knowledge, but also do the practice. And then after he felt that, oh, this is very good, he found out about the teaching, so he tried to share. And he, for me, what comes to my mind when talking about Ajahn Buddhadassa is, I remember when I was first there at Sona, just feels cool. It's the forest, and it's nice. He make it very nice, and it very, for me, it's very welcoming. And he's teaching it more with. We have to back to when I was young. I was questioning life, and I used to read about practice, about meditation.
Yeah.
And most of Thai will, at my time, you think that most of the, if you want to practice meditation, it's not for women, it's not for everybody, even, you know, like city monks or Thai monks don't really practice, only forest monks. And I'm questioning, you see, no, I don't believe that, but I could not talk to anybody, you know, I don't like conflict, yeah. So I'm just, okay, it's just kind of something that, is that true? But when I went to study or, you know, went to Sona at Ajahn Buddhadassa,
Yes.
if it's not the first time, but or the first couple of times that I went there, you know, he will say that the real disciple of the Buddha is not a man who shaves head, who, you know, wears yellow robe, but whoever, no matter who you are, you're a woman, you're a man, you work, or, you know, you mother or father, as long as you follow the teaching of the Buddha, you are a real disciple of the Buddha.
Yes.
Yeah, so for me that is very, wow, because, you know, that time when I first met Ajahn Buddhadassa or went to his monastery, I still have the idea of I would like to do something for society. I did not think about to become a nun, you know. Most people cannot ordain, and in society we have a lot of people. So it's good for some monks, nuns that we have, but it's not for a lot, most people. So can I do, and that when I do the spiritual community, Because I feel as I don't need to be a nun. I can practice, I can have Dhamma, and I can work, can do something. The Dhamma is for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. But of course, when I came here, it's different because here people don't really know much yet. At that time, this is 22 years ago, and I noticed that it's not easy to talk, to explain to people what I would like to do in my life. So, and a lot of people are also very nice. They kind, they care. So many of them will invite me to go visit here and there. But for me, I don't feel I need to go. I just would like to practice. So for me to become a nun, it's simple for people, And the truth, because this is for me, it's just the external. I think we can ordain in here. The true disciple of the Buddha in the heart is not the form. But in this situation, in this place at that time, I feel as it can be helpful. And for me, I don't really care much about how I look. Just shave head and wear this and it. So people can come and really talk, or we can talk more about how to train the mind, not talk about, should we go visit here and there. Canada is a very beautiful place, so there are many places that I should go and visit. It comes from good heart, but it's not, and it's not that others have to understand it, how I think. But if I can do this and help, so that's more, I think it's very good for me to have left Thailand and spent enough time here, because for me, I also learned that as a human being, no matter where we born, people have good heart. That's how I see. Because our condition, the culture, when you're thinking, when you're young, you would like to do something good. But in your culture or tradition, you have to do this. And I think in the West, you've been trained from school or from family. It's a little like focus. You have to train, you have to do something good. But in Thai, we are a little more relaxed in that way.
And you often, we would hear you warn people about clinging too much to language and words here in the West, which then can make the practice more difficult and more frustrating. Can you tell us something about that?
We have a good intention, people here, but it's not easy. Language, for me, language is the tool to communicate. But if we too much in the language, so we close, we narrow our way of thinking. This is what is Buddhist, good Buddhist is, and then we have to do this, we have to, That is part, it's not the whole.
Yes.
And I think what comes to my mind, when you first want to train, want to become a monk, what comes to my mind, senior monks, they first is new, so they need to study, they need to train themselves, the discipline, so it's a little like that. But after they're more relaxed because they already know. So it can be tools, but if we cling into that too much, we miss something,
When you came to Canada, when you left Thailand, you were still quite young, both by age and in your practice maybe too. How was it for you then to come from a Buddhist country to a place where Buddhism is only taking roots? Do you feel that you learned anything from the West?
A lot. Especially about myself. When you said I'm young, and at that time I don't think I feel as I'm young yet. Because before I came to Birken, I already had my plan. And even before that, I already worked at spiritual community. And during Ajahn Buddhadasa, still alive, the last few years, I will go to Sona. Few times a year, I will go there and practice. And I read a lot of his books and outer books. And when I first came here, I already had my plan. I came just for for a couple of weeks that time. And then my plan is I will go back to Thailand, find a forest monastery to practice. And that time I thought, well, because for me it's very important, you know, I lead, but I need time, I need good external support to really do the practice. And maybe at that time I'm still thinking about, maybe about few years, really practice, intensive practice. And then later I can do something more helpful because I will be more understanding about life. But then of course, when I came and then Ajahn Sona, he said, why I have to go to Thailand? Why don't I just stay here and practice here? So I thought, oh, really? Because earlier he never really let anybody stay long, you know. Yeah. So then the important thing, I think I can see his good aspiration, his kindness, his intention to spread the Dhamma, and he needs some help. It's like anything else you could not do alone, especially to establish the teaching. And so he just, well, you know, if I can stay and help. Yes. And in fact, I even told him at that time, I think a few times, I said, you know, I don't know how much I can help. I'm not know much about Canadians. I don't really know English that much. But the way he put it, well, you know, as a Thai and as practitioner, I can just be. Yeah. I keep reflecting or questioning myself, what is the teaching of the Buddha? To learn, to open, to see, to accept the condition that with this prayers. Things keeps changing. And that is part of the real Dhamma. Can I be okay with it? I'm different from what I thought before, but this is what it is. This is the true Dhamma for me, because it's the truth, it's real. And how about here, you see? Does that make sense?
Yeah, though I was thinking of something that would be different in the West as a Buddhist thought, or generally that you learned here. You know, that was useful for your practice, that you wouldn't have learned in Thailand.
Yeah, because you see, because I'm here, it's not in here, you see.
Yeah.
And the important thing when I said, oh, I learn and I feel it's very helpful, because as I said earlier, when we make some plan about this monastery, such as in the beginning, when we first, when Ajahn first buy this place, you know, he said, it's going to take few years of building, and then it will be monastery for people who want to practice and meditate and study. Yeah. But as you know, now it's 20 years here.
Yeah.
But this is how it is. For me, this is perfect as it is, you see. So that is important, because I can see that, there are conditions. And that one thing. The other thing that I think with Westerners, what I learned is, it helped me to more open to, with, you know, that Buddhism is universal truth. It's not just for Thais. It's for everybody. And here, people consider still new, you know, so you're curious, you want to see. And it's kind of nice, you know. So how could I be helpful? Because for me, it's important thing. The Dhamma, the teaching of the Buddha, is about how to live, how to be happy, how to understand life. And again, you know, it's for everybody, because it's the truth about life. But as a Buddhist, can I support people? And here in this place, I can say that I have to thank you, everybody give me this, because that's something I feel happy. I'm glad that I can do it. Be part to support other people who have this aspiration.
Now, as you were talking, you just mentioned 3 things that I think I learned from you. Not that I didn't know them before, but as you repeat them all the time, and I've spent a lot of time here, then they kind of became like my mantra, you know, and I would remember them at situations where they would be very useful, which I wouldn't have otherwise if you weren't reminding us of those all the time. And the one was, what would be helpful? You know, whenever there is a dilemma or question about something, your question, which really is the only question, the only Buddhist question, what would be helpful, right? And it helped me a lot to think that way, you know, not wonder about this or that, but what would be helpful. Yeah. And the other one is, can we be open? Can we open to this? And I always thought, of course we are open. We just assume we're open. What could she mean other than the obvious, right? And then when I understood it, actually, then I realized, well, we're not so open, really. I can speak for myself. Open only for things I like, right? And not for anything else. So now, whenever I feel negative about something, that's the question that comes to mind, you know. So I can examine myself and my attitude.
Yeah.
And the third thing with the conditioning, yes, you would often tell us that, oh, that's just how they're conditioned. And I was not open to conditioning. I was to transcend that. It's a kind of arrogance, you know, transcend it rather than understand it. Then I heard you talk about trees and flowers and how they're all different and how they're beautiful because they're different, because they're conditioned differently.
Yeah.
So then I changed my attitude towards conditioning altogether. I had much more respect for conditioning.
That's very nice.
Yes. So I thought we could have a look at some trees and imagine what they would look like if they weren't differently conditioned, but all the same, all perfect and absolutely straight.
As you can see, the healthy forest, there will be a lot of trees, different kind, different shape, some of them small, some of them big and tall. And they live together, they support each other. The small trees, the ground cover trees, the grass, they help keep the moisture. When the rain comes, they keep the moisture for the big trees. And the big trees give shade, but also when the leaves come down, it becomes fertilizer for the small ones. So I think that is beauty. And also, even the same kind of tree, it's not the same size, it's not the same height. They are different. And I think that is more real, you know. And similar with us, human beings, we are different. But also one thing that you mentioned earlier that come to my mind when you're talking about conditioning and transcending. Well, of course, you know, Nibbana is unconditioned. But that is the end of our practice. Now, we still on the process, we on the path. We can have an aspiration, but we have to accept that we're not there yet. We need condition to transcend. And if we keep training, if we keep practicing, eventually we will be there. Even the Buddha and his fully enlightened disciples, when they're still alive, they still have body, they still have to eat, they have to take care of their body. And it's conditioned, but their mind, quality of the mind, is unconditioned. The Buddha felt sick, he had some discomfort of the body, but he didn't suffer. He understands. And like for us, that's what we aspire to do. But see, sometimes we mix. Earlier you mentioned that I like to use the word, we cling to the word. Yes, we have good intention, we have good aspiration, but sometimes we misunderstand, we're not there yet. you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sister Mon, for all these similes. You have said a lot, but I would like to talk about conditioning some more. And nature is the best teacher. There is this big book by Bhikkhu Payutto, Buddha Dhamma, which is said to be the most comprehensive presentation of the teachings of Theravada Buddhism. And the subtitle of the book is The Laws of Nature and Their Benefits to Life. And it is for a good reason that Bhikkhu Payutto chose that subtitle for his book. So yesterday I went to see your garden, Sister Mon, but there wasn't much there to see at this time of the year. And the scene reminded me of myself when my heart gets deflated and deserted, when everything seems dead and hopeless.
See, that it for me, there's a lot of Dhamma. There are lots of things there in that garden. We use our eye, you know, and we have perception about what is the garden. And we say, oh, garden. When we're thinking about flower garden, it's supposed to have flowers. But during this time, again, you know, it conditioned, it's cold. The plants need to rest. When time comes, when it's proper time, proper conditions, like next spring, come back again, and we will see small green plants slowly coming, and it takes time for that to grow, and eventually they offer us flower. And of course, the beauty of the garden is not just only one kind of flower, there are different kinds of flowers. Even the same kind of flower, we call it iris. They're different shape, different color. So when we try to think in our heart, we want to have flower bloom in our heart, in our mind, to make our mind beautiful. It takes time. It needs many conditions to help, to support. It needs some soil for the plants, for the flowers to grow, needs some water, and the sun, the light. Many of you who came here before, that area was not the garden, you know. We just started last year to build the garden there. Before that, it's just the land. So it's similar when we want to practice, you know, when we're thinking about the garden, we're thinking about flowers that bloom, that beautiful. But, you know, to have that beautiful garden, it needs a lot of preparing, it needs a lot of work, a lot of support. I hope this garden can remind us that, we already have a nice land, we just need to put some work, and sometimes we have to wait for proper conditions. This garden has a lot of support from different people. Many people, almost everybody at the monastery helped to build this. We have a nice plan, you know, that, it's going to be in June or something. But then we got a lot of rain, so we have to wait because the land is too muddy. It could not work. So we have to wait until the weather lets us. So that for me is the condition. But very important thing with this, we could not have this beautiful garden without very kind donation from Ajahn mother, Irma, a very big donation. And we dedicate this garden to his father, who passed away last year. So I can see a lot of Dhamma in this garden, a lot of kindness, a lot of good, a lot of support.
Thank you, Sister Mon. Shall we now talk about Dhamma teachers, the big trees in the Dhamma forest? You have been with several different teachers that belong to different schools too.
Yeah.
And do you think it was beneficial to you to be with different teachers?
Yeah. Well, for me, you see, like every teacher, they they have kindness. They would like to share what works for them. And of course, they're different. They have different tendencies. They have different skills. Some of them more scholarly. Some of them thinking more about society. But they are nice. They're very good, very kind, very compassionate. You know, and to see and to learn from them, I think it's helpful. Yeah, but of course, you know, we have to. It's not about the teacher, but it's about ourselves. You know, can we open and appreciate all the kindness and the intention of the teacher, but also respect their decision, how they share the Dhamma. I think most teachers would like us to be happy.
Yes.
You know, but they cannot. Even the Buddha cannot make anybody be happy. But he shares. He opens and here, this is what he thinks is good, but each of us have to do the work. Yeah. But in the same time, if we look and if we try to remind ourselves that we're fortunate, we have many good experienced teachers who commit their life, have knowledge and share. I think that for me it's better to have that feeling or way of thinking, proper way of thinking, than to compare and get conflict between the teachers.
I know you have very high reverence for Bhikkhu Payutto, and I don't know how to address him properly. Can you say it? Like, what would you?
Well, if I talk in Thai, I will call him Than Cha Kun Payutto.
There you go. I can't say that, but I say Bhikkhu because Bhikkhu Payutto, because that is what he calls himself in this Buddha Dhamma big thick book that he wrote. And then there are some other titles in small print, but out of his modesty, I guess, he's Bhikkhu Payutto. And that book is claimed to be the most important Buddhist academic book of the 20th century, and he to be the most brilliant Thai scholar in the time remembered, etc. So he is big, and what is wonderful to me is that when you speak of him, you don't speak so much of him as a scholar, but you speak of his virtues. And it's so nice to me to hear you say those things, and especially how it gladdens you. Like you speak of him as somebody who is realized through his virtue, and he exemplifies the teaching that way, right? That are then equally important as his scholarly side, right?
Yeah, for me, you see, like again, like his skill, and he's very, very good. His mind, or he's very intellectual, very knowledgeable.
Yes.
And for me, the way I see it, it comes because his caring, his kindness, his compassion. He see it helpful, it's good. So it's a lot of work, to imagine to write that big book. And not only that, a lot that he wrote. And he gives a lot of talks. But for me, because I met him too a few times, so what I see is very gentle, very kind, very polite. He's very different. But for me, they see the teaching of the Buddha is the part. It's like food, you see. You're hungry, and when you eat, it's to fuel the body, food for the body. And of course, Westerners mostly have bread or some baking, but the Thai will have rice, curry. But the intention or the result is to be for the body, to be healthy. So it can be different. So when I'm thinking, Than Cha Kun Ajahn Payutto, Bhikkhu Payutto, he is more gentle, he is polite, but he is very knowledgeable. And of course, to be able to do that. In fact, for me, I consider him a very good practitioner. But because he's people saw him because the book or this, to think, oh, he's scholar, but he cannot live like that. He very sick, His health is not good at all. Many times I kind of, he in that, the doctor will say, he have to be in hospital or he have to special care. But when you look at him, he's so peaceful. He's so kind. To be able to have that, to show that the mind needs to be in that practice. You have to have very strong practice to do that.
Yes.
And as I said, he's very gentle, very patient to talk, not just only about his physical, with his health, but also with that he not complain at all. I never heard about he complain. He takes good care of his body, but he also do what he can for others. Ajahn Buddhadasa, Payutto, Bhikkhu, for me, they're very good example. They're very different. Ajahn Buddhadasa a little more forceful, powerful in that way.ท่านเจ้าคุณอาจารย์ also powerful in his way, but more gentle. Very nice, very gentle. But for me, what I learned, I think is important. They're not thinking about themselves. They know and they respect the teaching of the Buddha, that it's for everybody. And it's not about this, but it to continue to share. They're really real disciples of the Buddha. And well, of course, they're different teachers, but especially with these two, they always encourage people that the teaching of the Buddha is not just for oneself, it's for the many, for many people. So that's what for me. But as I said, that in fact, of course here, we in Ajahn Chah, of course, I also respect Ajahn Chah, Luang Pu Man. Fortunately, I'm born in Thailand, so I see all these different teachers, and very nice. For me, it's very good instead of make it conflict, but it can be support and it show the truth about the teaching. It universal truth. It just each of us have to see what will be helpful for us. Luang Ta Mahabo also very different, more firm, and Luang Pa Cha different, Luang Pu Man different, but they all, for me, they are good disciples of the Buddha.
That brings me to Ajahn Buddhadasa again, and I don't know if this is the right time to dive into his teachings a little bit, but I don't want to miss the occasion. So Ajahn Buddhadasa is known for his, shall we say, different interpretation of dependent origination, and he wasn't so interested in the cycle of past, present, future lives, of rebirth, but more so, or exclusively so, in the now, in conditioning right now, in this very life. What do you think were his reasons for that?
In Thailand, again, it have to relate to the situation in Thailand at that time. We, I'm there, I'm kind of fortunate. I went to Suan Mo during he talk more about this dependent origination, and I used to live in small town or in Bangkok or go over Thailand as an activist. So we observe, and I think for me that also impressed me about Ajahn Buddhadasa. He is willing to speak. Even most people disagree. What happened is lots of Thais want to be reborn in heaven, and a lot of them donate quite a lot to the monastery or do something and expect the result in next life. But with this life, they just enjoy. When they have time or opportunity, they do that. But for Ajahn Buddhadasa, I think he's more like, don't wait until next life. You spend too much time there or energy or resource there, but how about now? The teaching of the Buddha is about to be happy now, to understand about life now, and we can do it. That for me is more important than to do because of the result. In some of his talks in Thai,
Yes.
he mentions, yes, the Buddha talks or teaching about heaven, but he not give that as important. It happens, but priority is about this life, it's about now, that we can do something. Is that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I'm thinking now, I asked you to do this interview with you many years ago.
Yeah.
And also to maybe record some talks as well. But you were hesitant, and you never really were keen on giving talks, but would rather teach by example. So when you were talking about Bhikkhu Payutto or other teachers teaching by example, it's very powerful. And I almost, for myself, I think I almost learn more from absorbing the way they are than from the books. Well, both, of course. But can you tell us your reasons for not wanting to give talks or make interviews?
Before I go to that, I think I should say thank you for your patience and persistence to give me this opportunity to share. The teaching of the Buddha is about not just only understanding the teaching, the guidelines, but also to bring it into ourselves, to practice, to train our mind. And I feel as, like now you have a lot of good teachers, knowledgeable teachers, Westerners who are very good, and grow up in the same culture with people and can explain the Dhamma in your language, in your culture. And I have limit. You can see here, my English is not that good. So anyway, but also I think, as I said, for me, the life, the teaching of the Buddha is how to live. So, with listening or with the reading, it helps with this, the intellectual, and it's important. But how much? How much we need those? Can we just be? And of course here, we have a very good teacher who has a lot of energy and who loves to talk, Ajahn Sona, he keeps, he keeps talk almost often enough. So I think people already have a lot of information. So for me to just be and to do what I can, that I think it's helpful.
Yes. Well, for me, and I think everybody who has been through this monastery and talked to you, they would say the same thing. It was priceless to have interviews with you or conversation. And one thing that you would say that about Ajahn Buddhadasa, say he cares, he cares. And that's what people think about you, that you care. And one likes to be cared for. You relate differently to what they're going to tell you if you know they care.
The Buddha himself said that to be free from suffering, we need two important factors, the internal and the external. And I feel you and most people who come and talk already have this good, like internal. You have this aspiration, you would like to feel better. So if I could try to be friend, to support and to understand. And because people want to be good, but sometimes it's not easy. With this teaching of the Buddha, also it takes time. And people already have very good basic. You already have a lot of good quality within your heart. Just need to care, need to be kind, to be gentle or take time,
Well, that you can recognize that in people and connect that way. That is very special. That is very special, Sistemon.
Thank you.
Yes. So thank you so much for this interview. Is there anything that you would like to say that we haven't talked about?
Well, I think I really want to use this as an opportunity to thank you, especially Ajahn Sona, who established this place, and you know, for me to be able to stay here. I think it's important. It's very helpful for me to live in this kind of external support. But also for me, this monastery cannot be established without support from people. Thousands of people come through here, and it helps, you know. We cannot do it just by only one or two people. We need a lot of support, and of course all the stewards help, and guests, practitioners who come, and somebody who, right now, even some people who never visit but send support. When I'm singing that, I feel I would like to use this as my thank you opportunity, and that, you know, want to say thank you everybody. Yeah.
I don't know where to fit this, but somewhere. Joe, he's in Thailand, in Wat Pananjat, and I told him, oh, I'm going to Birken to do an interview with Sister Mon. Do you have questions for her? And he said, yes. Doesn't she get homesick? So that's his question. I promised I would ask.
Well, yes and no, but I think not really. I think that's more true. That not really, because for me, you know, here we came home too. I think of Thailand, how beautiful, you know, and how people are, and my family, my friends there, all of them, in fact, most of them, and a lot of nice things there. But I'm here now, you see. When I think of them, they're always with me. Yeah, it's not about physical, but the feeling, and I think it's more, you know, in that. And again, I like to reflect on the teaching of the Buddha about can we be here now? I can use it as my practice, you see. Remind myself, I cannot be there, and why I have to feel not good. Can I, you know, but in the same time when I'm thinking about Thailand or people there, I can send my good wishes. That one thing. The other thing that I think is more important, and I believe that most my friends or family wish me to be happy. And of course I also wish them to be happy. But they cannot make me be happy. I cannot make them be happy. So what can I do? So I take care of myself. Yeah, and I think that what is more. Also, I think, the feeling of home is here is more than the place, the physical place. Yeah, and what comes to my mind is back to Ajahn Buddhadasa. Because, of course, I like to spend time at Sulat Mok because it's very cool. It's forest, you know, and he's teaching a lot. But I have my work far from Sulat Mok.
Yeah.
But one thing that I also feel, the way he put it, he said, Sulat Mok is not here. What, you know, he points where he sits, you know, it's not this monastery.
Yes.
Sulat Mok, the idea is in here, you know. If you practice, if you follow the teaching of the Buddha, you can have Sulat Mok with you. And for me, that is very helpful. So similar, you know, my home is here.